everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Cupid. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I'm actually a bit flushed, a bit hyperventilating because I just got off work. I have been thinking so much about all the things I have to do, right? All the things I have to do, all the things I want to do, all the things I said I would do, etc., 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 right? The things I started, the things I'm in the middle of starting. If you're an artist, you probably understand. If you got a little ADHD, you probably understand. But nonetheless, my brain is really just all over the place, trying to keep up with every single task and every single project that I have on my table. So I thought, why not talk about the time required, the time that is necessary to put into your art, and why that time is so important. So you're an artist that makes art for yourself, right? Or you're somebody who likes art and wants to make art, but you have trouble with the entire art making process, right? The process of going from idea to finished product can be frustrating, or it can be prolonged, or etc., 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 right? So if you're an artist like me, then you find yourself thinking often about how long it takes to create art, right? Or at the very least, how long it takes to create art that you're proud of, right? Because anybody can crank out a little something in 2 minutes, 5 minutes, right? But to make something that you're truly proud of, that you want to share, right? That you want other people to see, and that you feel really represents you as an artist, it takes time, right? It takes time, it takes patience, it takes dedication, and it takes practice, okay? When you're in that place where you're constantly thinking about what needs to get done, what's not getting done, unfortunately, that can make creating art very daunting and discouraging. And it can build up pressure and anxiety within you that can cause you to stop creating altogether. I know that when I am my most anxious, I have artistic blocks. It's hard for me to settle down and relax enough to put in the discipline to create something. And so if you're like me, let me know in the comments. Because of this, I see why people can stop creating and give up altogether. But the goal is to not let those anxieties keep us from doing the work that we've set out to do. We don't want to allow the anxiety to develop this constant disappointment with us, because if we're constantly associating art making with disappointment, we're just less likely to pursue it. The reality, despite how much we might want to rush our process, is that good art takes time, okay? We have to take our time. That time that we use to paint or draw or build or knit or whatever art that you do, that time that you put into it is beneficial. It's not this trivial element that's holding you back. Time is the cake in the oven, okay? Not only does art require time to be produced, but art making itself has often been associated with spiritual practices. So when you start to look at art from that lens, you see it as time needed to connect, right? Time needed to connect with your materials, time needed to connect with your concepts, right? Time needed to connect with yourself, right? And also time to just problem solve, work through ideas that you thought would work but don't work anymore. Or maybe your concepts change. Time allows you to really tap in to the important elements of your piece. You approach art from this commodified or manufactured perspective, it really does devalue the practice, and it contradicts what the practice is really intended for. For many of you who want to create more and more art, or you want to be a famous artist, or you want to be a successful artist, art making does not require you to be a machine. okay? You don't need to be a slave to production in order to create art or to create many pieces of art. I think that's probably most artists' goal, is to be able to spend their time creating as much art as they possibly can. Even in that time, when you become the successful artist who has nothing but time to make art, you still don't want to be cranking out pieces left and right without thought or without intent. At the end of the day, art is meant to be shared, which means that the goal is always for the pieces we create to be impactful and meaningful. So because of that, we don't want to reduce the practice to something that feels like imprisonment or like a shackle or like a chore. We want the practice to be enlightening and something that you gain from. Every time you step into your studio, you pick up your pen or your paintbrush or your marker or your crayon, whatever art you make, whenever you pick up your materials and you go into that space, it needs to be a space that feels cultivating, right? A space that feels fruitful. You don't want to step into your art making space and feel this cloud weighing down on you, because what do you think that's going to do to the work you produce? The work conceptually may not get very far. The work in practice might not get very far either, because the more you feel that way, the more you lose the motivation and the more it feels like a burden to have these projects looming in the background. Another thing to remember is that great artists live life, right? Great artists gain experience, right? Experiencing other things outside of the studio. It is those experiences out in the world that help inform the art that we create. They help us generate ideas, right? And I do want to do a video more specifically on generating ideas, because like I said, there's so many artists that find themselves weighed down by the task of creating the art, that all these different parts that get you to the finished piece are daunting and heavy and burdensome, right? So I do want to do a video on just generating ideas, but you want to make sure that you are making time to experience and absorb, right? Because that is what's going to help inform the art that you create. One thing that I learned in college that I thought was so important was that anything you want to do, you need to look at the work of others. And obviously I was doing that, but applying it in a more intentional way really helped me, right? If I want to be a painter, I need to look at other painters. If I like to write poetry, I need to read other poets. Not only does that give me a sense of what other people are talking about, but it can also broaden your perspective on what you can do, right? You're not looking to be a copycat, but you are looking to be informed. You're a student. You're always a student. And so the art making process, just like a spiritual practice, is one where you are always on a path of learning and discovering more. You don't know everything. So we never want our door completely shut and we're constantly always in the studio trying to crank out this art, but we're not living life to help make our art fuller and more authentic to ourselves. That's why this artistic practice that us here watching this video pursue, we do it because the point is for us to express ourselves in our most authentic fashion. And the only way we can do that is by knowing ourselves more. With that goal of expressing ourselves, we have to remember that a quota is not included in that. There's no numerical goal of how many pieces you need to create in order to express yourself authentically. In fact, the more you express yourself authentically, the more you may find yourself feeling like this endless well of inspiration that allows you to create the numerous pieces of art that you want to create. And while I do want to do a fuller video, a bit more in depth on generating ideas and conceptuality, I do just want to go ahead and throw in a few nuggets here. The thing about conceptuality and art is that getting to that idea is sacred, right? Getting to the idea that strikes a chord in you and you know that that is what you want to focus on, that is a powerful, sacred moment. It should be cherished and it should be valued. Getting to that idea requires time. I would even say from a spiritual practice perspective that reveal of that idea is the reward of being an artist. That moment when you're like, oh, that is a reward in and of itself, because you're not an artist really if you aren't thinking, right? If you're not coming up with new ideas. I would say for me, that moment of reveal, that moment when you come in contact with the topic that you want to focus on, I really feel like it can't be replicated by a commodified artistic process, one that's like a conveyor belt or a company pumping out a product. That moment of reveal is lost. Another thing to consider is that your audience is looking to connect with you. When somebody looks at your art, they're looking for you. And it's tricky because they are looking for you in a way that resonates with them. They're essentially looking for pieces of themselves in your ideas. They're not looking for you inside of them. So that's why it's so important to be authentic. Take the time to know yourself, know what you're interested in, know why you're doing the things you do, because when your audience looks at your art, they're not going to be looking at it like, where am I? They're going to be looking at you to figure out how you relate to them. And it sounds almost the same, but it's not quite, because the truth is that you are the reality of your art. You are the context. So once you remove yourself from the art, once you remove your personal touch, once you remove the time it takes to make it something impactful, and you're just cranking out product after product, you remove that connection with the audience. And depending on the type of piece or product, it can still be bought like a purse. A purse isn't, nobody's buying a purse to connect with the person creating the purse, but something like a t-shirt with a nice graphic design, a poster, a book, right, with a graphic novel. These are things where people are really looking at the artistic concepts and trying to relate, trying to connect. And once, like I said, you take yourself out of that, it's harder for an audience to find an anchor to connect to. They're looking to discover more about themselves. That's why they are going to look at your art and trying to find something about you or what you've done that relates or speaks to them, because the audience is also on a path of discovering, right? What does your art do to their psyche? What does your art reveal to them about themselves or what they want or desire or need, okay? So they're not looking for a shallow reflection. They're looking for an in-depth experience. The experience that people are looking for, whether they create art or they're consuming art, is a transformative one. People want to change. People want to evolve. So that's why it's so important that the time you take to create your art shouldn't be rushed. It should feel organic, right? You should feel motivated. You should put in the work when you have the time and the energy, but you shouldn't feel any guilt for not getting something out sooner or at the right time or at the perfect time, okay? That is the least important part. The most important is that you are putting in the right ingredients. It's like a cake in the oven, okay? You can really want this magnificent chocolate cake, but if you aren't willing to bake that cake for the correct amount of time, if you're not allowing it to stay in the oven until completion, then once you reveal it and try to take a piece of it, all it will do is fall apart. It's not going to live up to the expectation. It's not going to meet the standard that you set for it. And those standards are always different, right? Standards are different for every piece, every artist, every day. The standards change, so that fluidity is there. But the point is, if you're not willing to cook that cake for however long it needs to, then that cake is not going to be up to its full potential. Your job as an artist is to trust the process, that journey. Trust the process and let your art. And by that I mean, allow your art to reveal itself to you over time. Allow your art to evolve organically. It will amaze you. Once you stop trying to rush and force, it will amaze you what your art reveals to you. Not only about yourself, but about others, about your experiences, about your perspective. And if you find yourself stuck on something, you feel that it's not moving fast enough, or you're running out of steam, or you just don't really know where to go, understand that you can always take time. Time is so important. Put it aside and allow time to pass. Time will reveal what you need to know. Time holds all the secrets. So try not to rush through the art making process. Understand that you are working hand in hand with time, your teammates, okay? So I'm gonna leave you guys there. I'm a little hungry. I haven't eaten anything since I got home. If you felt like anything I said was helpful or insightful, or you wanna add something, please put it down in the comments. This is an art community. On my channel, this is Art Focus. We love being our authentic self, and we love expressing ourselves authentically, okay? So I will catch you guys at the next video. Bye.